Hello, it's David. Slightly different introduction focus today because I find myself down here at the Hythe and Dibden Parish Hall for MrBomberMillzy's Cyberlegends retro event. So let's go in and see what we can find. Now before we start, I need to make an apology about the quality of the upcoming audio. Unfortunately my camera is broken, and so the only recording device I had available was my old mobile phone. I could only get one microphone to work with that old mobile phone, which was my normal lavalier mic. Now I rigged this up so I'd put it on the end of a bit of wood so that hopefully you could hear the people I'm interviewing, but when I turned it on myself I spoke directly into the microphone, which is not obviously how you're meant to use a lavalier, so I am grotesquely distorted, I'm afraid. I've cranked the volume down whenever I speak, so hopefully it's not too terrible on your ears, but I do apologise, it does sound like I'm speaking through a paper bag. So this is our host. This is Anthony, MrBomberMillzy. Hello there.
Hello.
So you've been playing this for a little while. How do you think it's going?
Very well for everyone else.
For everybody else?
I think I've spread myself too thin. Too many items, not enough time to set it all up.
I've got 3 over there that I still haven't got to work myself. That's my desk over in the corner, and I'll take you through that later. I haven't gone there yet. So what have you got here then, Anthony? What are we looking at?
Early Commodore 64 bread bin.
That seems in use?
Yes, it's one of my favourite computers, actually. They seem to go for a lot of money because people say they're very rare, but they're in fact the biggest selling computer ever.
5 million of them in the UK or something?
Yeah.
Was that your first?
It was, yeah. I got one for my birthday, when was I, 12 years old, from my nan, bless her. It's I think what was it, 199 that she paid for it.
That seems reasonable these days.
Yeah, it's getting there again, isn't it? So we've got that.
Now this one is rare.
Reasonably, yeah. It's a Spectrum 128 toast rack.
Well, I say rare. If you look on eBay.
Yeah. But, well, you know.
This is my favourite Spectrum.
Is it really?
I think it's everybody's favourite Spectrum, isn't it? I mean, what's not to love about the 128?
It's the last real Spectrum, isn't it?
And it had the menu, and it had the YM chip. It was just, it felt... Tape tester. Excellent. Oh, and this is one of these new Amiga Checkmate cases, is it?
Yep, it's the Checkmate A1500 Plus, which is the update of the old A1500 made by Checkmate back in the day. It's designed to look like a A3000. Does a pretty good job of that. And we look inside, we have a creature that sucks blood in there.
So this is the Vampire FPGA CPU replacement?
Yep, it's the V2 version, which the modern ones now are V4. This one is it's still got some of the uses parts of the Amiga rather than just being a separate thing.
Yeah, as opposed to standalone.
Yeah, so this will go through your RGB port. It will use your floppy drive, whatever. Whereas the modern ones will do everything on their own.
Yeah, no, I think that's nice, isn't it, when you get it playing with the other chips. And that's stacked on a Mac.
That's stacked on quite a nice Mac. It's a 660 AV with DMA.
I don't know too much about Macs, so where does that stand in the pantheon? What's that? Is that still a 68K style processor?
It's a 040.
Very nice.
Now with these, the general Mac Quadras were a bit, they work similar to how an ST works. So you've got the main processors doing everything, frame buffering the screen, doing all the work. With the AVs, they actually had some bits and bobs on there extra, like they had a Philips SA chip for TV out, TV in. They had DMA. They came out just around about the time Steve Jobs did the Next machine, so they sort of took a bit of.
So this was in the Jobs, the Jobs wilderness.
Yeah, but it also comes with a DSP.
Very Falcon-ish.
Very, very. Yeah, and I looked into maybe emulating Falcon with this machine.
Get emutos going on it.
I don't think so. I think Mac OS, for me anyway, it's very closed wall. The ROM's built in with like the data, everything's all in together, and it's beyond me and beyond the time I have.
Not meant to be hackable, was it?
Not really.
What have you got hiding over there in the distance?
An Atari Falcon 030.
Unloved, dumped on the shelf.
Taken off because someone is very interested to buy it. So,
Heard you had a couple of things for sale. TT as well.
yeah, a bit further down the line.
Wish I'd saved my pennies when I was younger.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So the idea is I've got too many projects on the go, and I don't want to end up 10% into each project and dying. Well, I've been making a computer game since 1999. First priority is get the game finished on the PC. Second, I was going to port it to one of the 32-bit Atari machines, or 32-bit 68030.
I look forward to that. What else we got hiding on here then?
Yeah, let's move on. We have an Amiga 500, which people get very excited about because they see the 500 plus sign, but it's actually a 500 in there.
Camouflage.
Yeah, I've actually pinched the 500 plus. It's gone in the special case there. However, it does come with some good items. We've got no less than 3 high colour frame buffers for the Amiga. We've got the Colour Burst, the Ham-E, and the DCTV, which I have been trying to drum into the people who are designing the new shifter chip, the fact that these boards use, they can display up to between 2 million and 24 million colours, but they use the bandwidth of 4-bit planes, which is, I was trying to drum that into people how good that is. Like, for example, the Atari Falcon, it's got lovely colour modes, but you cannot work with them in any sense because the bus is so slow.
They crawl a bit, yes. No, I've seen that.
This is the solution. Take note, someone.
Duly noted. Right, well, what else do we have here then? Let's move along. Our checkmate keyboard.
Which goes over there. Unfortunately, it's gone along a bit.
I'd like to see one of these for the ST range. It's quite a nice little idea, isn't it? It's sort of like a metal surround for the original 500 keyboard, is it?
Well, yeah. They did have something like this on the ST, the Lighthouse Tower, which someone's brought. Alex, maybe. So it was about, but it hasn't been made for a while, and it's...
Yeah, all the desktop stuff, I think, used to do something similar, didn't it?
Yeah, that's it, that sort of thing, yeah.
Really like a modern one.
Next up is an Atari TT-030.
I'd love a TT, but I think my wife would kill me.
Well, I have got it for sale, but I don't really want to sell it because I'm doing some bits and bobs here, and I'm hoping some of the software developed from this will find its way to the Phoenix, because I've sort of developed a software chunky mode system which works. Not finished yet, but I've got a 20-page white paper on the design so far, and all testing so far shows that it should be viable. So
excellent. Well, we'll watch this space. So got another Commodore 64?
Right, as it's the Commodore 64's 40th anniversary, we had to put a few in there. Funnily enough, this one has been donated. I actually went to Bournemouth yesterday, and there's a retro shop there called Gamers, spelled with a Z, and I explained to the guy, I'm doing a computer show tomorrow, have you got anything suitable? And he said, went out the back, came back. There you go, you can have that. It's not working, but it's showing a Commodore 64C.
What's that? Is that Acorn Electron I see hiding down there?
It is. Unfortunately, I never got a power supply with it, and it's got a funny 19-volt AC or 16-volt AC power supply, which generally I've got DC supplies. So
yeah, that's going to be quite awkward to find then, isn't it? Yeah, might have to build something custom.
Yeah, I even thought about winding my own, but again, time is the killer.
They learned, though, Acorn, by the time they got onto the Archimedes, it was all 5 volts, single supply. It's very nice. Mega 2 over there?
Yeah, Mega 4 actually, as it's been upgraded. And it also, I better shove it. Let me move these out of the way. This is the only one ever built, so you may as well have a look. It's got the twin shifter board in there.
Ah, so this is to let you use a palette of 32,000 colours?
Yeah, originally the original document I was talking with someone called David Spornicki on the Exxos Forum, and we were speaking and buzzing ideas about the Barry Orlando original document. It never had a circuit board on there or components, so it was a sort of guess. And I said, "Well, no one's ever built one, so we don't know if it works." And he said, "Right, let's go for it." And so he built his with there's extra bits on the extra lines for the extra bits. So rather than going with the original 4096 colours to be like an STE, why not use the additional bits and get 15-bit colour?
So it's still 16 on the screen, but the actual palette to choose from is massively increased.
Yeah. So I'm hoping with the work I'm doing on the TT, as mentioned earlier, the chunky modes, I'm hoping to get more colours per line than 16.
Okay, well, look, Anthony, that's great, and thank you very much for setting this up and giving us a quick tour here. I'll let you get on because, you said you wanted to get something working here.
Yep, by the end of the night, I may get one thing up and running. So,
cheers, you're very kind.
Thanks ever so much. Cheerio.
Okay, so this is my desk. I've got the Falcon on the go here with DFB1 set up. So just to show off its capabilities here, it's running Anders Basilisk II. And I've been inviting people to come and have a game of golf because there's no decent games on the Falcon, so why the hell not? The STE is here. It's got its top off so that the DSTB1 can be on display. We've got the ACSI to STM there at the back, and this is just running Frontier. Nobody's sat down and had a game of Frontier yet. I'm a little bit disappointed about that, but never mind. I was having to put PyStorm in there, but unfortunately my STFM board didn't survive the trip, and I haven't had time to fix that yet. So that one, hopefully I'll be able to patch that up and get PyStorm on display for somebody shortly. I've also got my old CRT oscilloscope here, which I was hoping someone would take off my hands. But had no inquiries yet, and that's running a couple of old school XY demos there from an audio source. So I'm going to carry on walking around and having a chat with people, and then I really ought to come back and sort out that STFM. I think I've got a dry joint on one of my address lines.
I'd like to thank this video's sponsor and the supplier of my project PCBs, PCBWay. PCBWay aren't just about PCBs either, although they are extremely good at that. They also offer component assembly, CNC machining, 3D printing, and a variety of other manufacturing services. They have a number of community-focused offerings too. The Shared Project Hub is an open platform for makers to share and exchange their ideas, and the PCBWay store is a great place to pick up assembled modules. I mean, who wouldn't want a musical Tesla coil? So many thanks again to PCBWay, and I recommend you have a look at some of the links included down below.
So just had a lovely presentation here from Icky, who is representing the Exxos Forum today, and has very kindly agreed to sponsor the raffle today with a brand new, fully tested H5 board. So
And not just me, it's Exxos and myself, basically sponsoring.
Exxos and Icky. So what is the H5 project then, Icky?
Right, so the H5 project is a remake motherboard. We actually call it Phoenix project. So the whole idea is Phoenix has a whole ecosystem. It's a new motherboard. The motherboards in the old systems are quite problematic. These new ones have fixes, all the different mandatory fixes. It's newer technology with the surface mount chips and things like that, so it's a lot more stable. And we've got a lot more expansion on them as well with extra ports, and it's got a 3.3 volt bus as well, so that we can have...
You're saving a lot of space with the SMD, so you can add all of these expansion areas.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And go straight to the modern technology with the 3.3 bus.
Yeah, that way you don't have to, every single chip that you try and sort of replace with either FPGA or other type of low voltage chip, you don't have to worry about it because you just use it on the 3.3 volt bus effectively.
So is this one here?
This is one here. So we actually have a complete setup of a Phoenix platform. It's not all the boards that we have. We call them E-boards, Phoenix E-boards. I'll take the keyboard off, and I'll just flip the Gotek out of the way. So
this is what I'll be winning later?
If you have entered the raffle, yes, you can. And the raffle tickets basically finish at 7 o'clock today. So, yeah.
Viewer, he didn't accept my wink.
Okay, so this is an H5 motherboard. We went through various different iterations. We had an alpha board originally, which was the small one that we started with, and quite a few people on the forum helped build that. They sort of went through a rush of trying to build it and get it working.
So that was called Alpha, or that was called H1?
Yeah, if I can just grab it, sorry. So this is the Alpha board. This is unpopulated. This is the first one that Exxos designed, and effectively it was to see if it would actually work. And it worked after a lot of bodge wires, extra stack boards and things like that. But I think we managed to get the first one going in a few sort of days and so forth. And there was quite a few people that got involved in building that up. Once we got it working and proved that it actually worked, then we moved on to the H4.
So what does the H, stand for?
It was just, I'm not actually quite sure why we had it. I think it might be hybrid or something like that. This was the hybrid board. We were thinking about doing Exxos was thinking about doing a legacy board, which was just like just simple, the old chips and smaller and things like that.
A one-for-one replacement.
Yeah, effectively. So the H4 was still through-hole, and it was basically to bring in the expansion ports. So we could actually have things plugged in like Terrible Fires, sort of expansion. We had our flashy clock, which was about doing sort of flash ROM and real-time clock. But this is all 5-volt bus and so forth. And this worked, had all the fixes in, and it sort of worked. Then we sort of wanted to move towards surface mount technology, and that's where the H5 came in. I'll grab one of those. The H5, we basically have, this is one of the revs of it, but it's surface mount. A lot easier to manufacture being surface mount. You get the manufacturer to put some of the chips onto it, but it still has the sockets that you have to put in for the MMU, the CPU, and so forth. But it had an addition of a 3-volt bus.
So that's what this row of buffers along here does?
Correct. So instead of, when you have to replace a chip, if you're trying to play around with FPGs, you'd have to have those translators on each chip. But now if you've got a bus that's 3.3 volts, you can effectively just plug something in and it just sort of works, assuming you built the board correctly.
And so all of those little cards, they're on display over here?
Correct. Not all of them, we've got a few of them here. So we've got the Phoenix shifter. This is a re-implementation of the shifter in FPGA. Been working with S. Monson on the forum, taking his initial board, and we've brought it down in size to the size almost of the shifter, but you see it sort of extends out the HDMI out to the actual monitor port, so you can plug it in. We actually have, I have been sort of squashing that down to more of a STFM version, so it'll actually fit in the can. So we can actually just do a shift, and there'll be a ribbon cable out to the HDMI port, effectively. And it does true translation of the digital signal that the Atari is pushing out, upscales it and pushes out digitally to HMI, so there's no artifact.
Which is different to the way that the Raspberry Pi based systems work.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one is TrueD, stands for True IDE. It's basically an IDE board. This one's got a compact flash card plugged in. It does auto byte swap and works very nicely. You can take the card out, stick it in your Windows, Mac, read the files and transfer them and put it back in again.
And I see that's sitting on the 5-volt bus at the moment, but is the idea that that will shift over to the 3?
Yeah, we have a newer version that can do 3, or 5 that Exxos has been working on. And then we have this one, which is on the 3.3 volt bus. This is Flashy Clock. It has 8 meg of alt RAM. It has 4 banks of ROM, and you can basically boot it on any one of those banks or off the motherboard ROM as well. And lastly, it has a clock, RTC clock as well in there.
So the idea is that you could get the H5 board and it would emulate the old STF as it was, but then it's got all of these additional options that can be bolted on.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was demoing this earlier, I've got all these bits and pieces bolted on. We were able to just put it straight out onto the projector using the HDMI. We could show all the different resolutions. There's also another board here, which is actually a sound wave card, and that basically enables us to do MIDI straight out the audio port as well. So,
and we heard a great demonstration of that earlier on.
Yes, absolutely. We're playing, I think, like In Excess or something like that.
I was just waiting for the vocals to come in. I thought it was that good.
Yeah, it was just the instrumental. Yeah.
You've got just you press it on MIDI inside your SD, it's coming out of the audio tape.
And then I guess, the next thing we're looking at this is actually a keyboard to sort of do a keyboard of this. And bring this over.
So this is a personal favourite of mine. I can't say. Well, there's another favourite of mine that's hidden behind there. We'll come to that in a moment. But I can't tell you how much I enjoyed the video, which I'll link in just up the top here, of your first experiment with this.
Yes, so this is the keyboard remake. This came about when I was, and I know you were pointing the other one, when I was doing the case redo. I had half the case as I was prototyping it, and I put the original keyboard in it, and it looked like the Mega ST keyboard, and that started me thinking about, why don't we do a keyboard remake? This is really just a complete replica of the original STFM one. The only difference is we're actually using cherry keys. This one actually has the brown keys on it. There's a few foibles I've had with this. So I've got the return key slightly off by a couple of millimeters. I put the joystick and the mouse port the wrong way around, so I've got to have them the other way around. But it works, and it's using the original chip, and I've put everything on the top side so that it will actually rest on this and have a metal frame for the keys and so forth. Has a few extra features. The power LED is an RGB. There's a little dip switch. You can choose which color you want it to be. The floppy drive LED again is RGB, and you're able to choose what you want for floppy disk, and then also take off from the True IDE board the hard disk, so you can have different colors. That'll eventually come. It's really rudimentary at the moment, but the plan is to have an FPGA, take over from the original board.
So there's an empty footprint there for that already?
There is, empty footprint. This is just the development board. If I can do this and get rid of the chip, we can add other things to it. We've actually got circuit in here for drivers for LEDs for underneath the keys and various other bits and pieces.
So come on, let's hear you type on it. That's ruined my not for kids rating.
Yep. You've probably also noticed that there's something a little bit weird about the space bar.
It's looking very Amiga-y, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, so as you probably know, the keys, we can't get hold of these keys. There are some weird keys. Our function keys are weird. The return key is also an odd one, and also the space bar is an odd one. It's really long on the ST. So while I was actually doing the sort of revision, we can put the original one on there, but I also noticed that there is space to put the normal type of size of spacebar and 2 keys. I know they're Windows keys, but we could have Atari keys or Phoenix keys or whatever we want to call them.
Could be useful for the sort of the advanced character sets now that we see with the likes of Emutos and Mint and things like that.
It could be. I've sort of been playing around with the sort of matrix. At the moment, they're actually working F1 and F3, which is a bit weird, even though they're on a completely different matrix set. But I'll have to sort of have a look and see what's going on there.
And there's one thing that stands out, catches the eye for some reason. I can't quite put my finger on it. What's this at the back here there, Icky?
This is a 3D print of the case.
This is from your home 3D printer?
It is from my home 3D printer, which is a Voron derivative. But if we put these two together, you can sort of see the sort of, pretty much they're the same. But this is a prototype. There's still a long way to go because it's not quite fitting in certain places. A few things we're trying to sort of iterate on it, such as having a removable panel. We're trying to have sort of a panel at the back that you can have different ones. So if you've got a Falcon, you've got like an ST, which has the extra ports for the stereo. And then the whole idea is that you just slide that into your actual sort of back of your computer. And then it'll have also a port that you can remove for the joysticks, for the ST joysticks. And then also we want to have a modular port for the floppy as well.
So that would you'd sort of start with a wide opening up here and then be able to slot in a more form-fitting panel of your choice.
Yeah, we're sort of toying with it at the moment, just like have that as a whole panel, and then you just slot it on to the side, and then it just...
Oh, the whole end piece?
Yeah, the whole end piece, yeah.
Well, it's great. I mean, Icky, I think this is absolutely fantastic. In the presentation today, I don't know whether we got that on record. If we have, I shall link that in below. Definitely worth a watch. I, for one, am really, really impressed with the keyboard here. I think that's absolutely sensational. And I'm actually probably most impressed by the fact that your 3D printer is big enough to get all of that on there.
It takes a while to print it. It takes like 2 to 3 days to actually print this off because you've got to be slow because it's quite a big footprint and so forth. But it gets there in the end. And this wasn't very good quality, but it survives what we're trying to do.
And you print it from the back up, is that right?
I've printed it in different orientations. So the base was actually printed completely flat, but you find that actually trying to peel it off the flexiboard takes a lot of effort. And sometimes you find like you've got so much of that area, it tries to pull the flexi plate up as well as it starts to cool.
Okay, so the Exxos Forum is where we should go if we'd like to follow along with your project?
Absolutely, that's where everything is for the whole Phoenix sort of ecosystem, all the different boards. Exxos has basically helped this whole thing forward, and it's a vision of his, and I've been working with him to get it there.
That's brilliant. Well, thanks, Icky, and all the best of luck with this because I think this is a really, really impressive undertaking. And I'll pop the Phoenix Project's link down below.
Okay, thank you.
This little ST M, perhaps just straight ST case. Purporting to be a Falcon 030 is, I think, so far my highlight of the day. So here's a name I've seen around the Atari scene for many, many years. This is Stephen Usher. Hello, Stephen.
Hello. Nice to be on the video.
I saw your name scroll up my screen for many, many years from the old Mintos days, I believe. And I can see you've got the old Elite Dangerous. Oh no, that's just the old style Elite. That's the 84 Elite shirt on the go. There we go, 3D Elite. Oh, there we go. And I've seen you about on the Elite Dangerous side of things, and on the Atari forums, and on the Exxos forums, and you're generally involved in all sorts of retro.
Yeah, generally, I haven't really put things away since when I got my first X81 in Christmas of 1981.
Still on the desk?
I still got it in the loft.
Not quite. Okay, close up. What do we have here then, Stephen?
So, effectively, if we go in time order, really, we got the Memotek MTX series computers. This was created by the company that first produced memory upgrades for the ZX81, memory upgrades and keyboards and things. Hence the name Memotek, because they produce memory upgrades.
That's how they started.
Indeed. So in 1982, they decided, well, Sinclair have got into all this new computer things. Let's try and do it ourselves. So they started the development of the MTX. The first I saw it was on the cover of Your Computer magazine in early 1983, actually. But that was actually, as it turns out, just a mock-up. But it just looks so sexy because it's brushed aluminium, extruded brushed aluminium.
Is this a 1983 machine?
This one probably is a 1984 machine because it took them until 1984 to actually get it to proper market.
Well, when you think about what that was competing with in 1984, I mean, I'm not even sure, had the Sinclair Spectrum Plus come out yet?
No, the Spectrum Plus was sort of late 84, but that was just a refresh of the original Spectrum. It's just a new case.
I was just thinking in cases. You're talking about Dead Flesh keyboards. You're talking about the nasty Auric keyboards. You're maybe talking about the Jupiter Ace. So then you've got this.
Yeah, they've got this, which is basically using the same key switches as the BBC Micro. So it sounds, if you can hear, sounds like a BBC Micro keyboard.
Well, I'll just get in closer so you can have a listen to that. I think the thing that's most noticeable about it, as you say, it's brushed aluminium, so the thing must weigh a ton.
It's not that, it's heavier than the Micros that you would have expected at the time, but that's probably no heavier than a Dragon 32. Aluminium's quite light, and they use the aluminium to its best advantage as a heatsink. So the all the power regulation is done on board on the motherboard. The power supply is just box there is just a basically a transformer. So all the power stuff is in here. The power regulators use the case as the heatsink.
I see you've got a bit of a musical demo on here for us.
Well, this is just the startup sound for the MFX.
That's the default startup sound?
Yes, for this upgrade.
Oh, is this a third party?
Yes, this is actually new this year. This upgrade, the multi-function expansion, developed by some of the people who used to work for Memotech at the time. This adds brings the machine up to 512K of RAM. Adds virtual floppy drives, or didn't have hard drives, but large floppy drives, and an 80-column board compatibility with the old CPM system, which was the FDX system, which was a big brushed aluminium expansion box. The only claim to fame for the Memotech is that it appeared in a Hollywood movie called Weird Science as the computer.
That was a Memotech.
That was a Memotech 512 with the FTX. Well, the graphics weren't, of course.
You've given us an excuse to watch that film again now.
Yeah, but yeah, it produced Kelly LeBrock.
Okay, we've got the Sinclair QL over here. So this was the strange 8-bit version of the 68,000, yes?
8-bit multiplex bus version, yes. So internally, it's a full 68,000 architecturally, but with a multiplexed 8-bit bus, which made it cheaper, supposedly cheaper to interface, because you could use, just like on the IBM PCXT, where you had essentially an 8-bit computer with a 16-bit processor, you got an 8-bit computer with a 16/32-bit processor.
Yeah, 4 bus axes for each long word.
Yeah. So at the time when this was being developed, originally Sinclair was thinking of having an Z80-based computer, and some bright spark thought, wouldn't it be great if we went to the next generation? So they saw that the 68008 was available, which was relatively easy to then integrate into what had been their 8-bit design.
It kind of bridged the gap.
Yeah. Unfortunately, by the time of release, Motorola had gone off the boil with the 68008. The prices were higher than the full 68000 because hardly anyone bought them.
That seems typical for Sinclair, doesn't it?
Yeah. There was another design choice that they used to simplify it. There's a second processor, an IPC, an Intel IPC processor, which is used in lots of keyboards. But to save cost, not only does it do the keyboard, but it does the sound and the RS-232 receiving. So if you type or play a sound, it can't receive data on the RS-232.
There's always a compromise with Sinclair, isn't there?
Yeah.
So what's this one on the end? This looks a little bit more familiar to me, to be honest.
To the Atarians, yes. It's the Falcon 030. I actually got this a couple of months ago. Someone I know was saying, I need to clear out. I've got a Falcon. Would you be interested? He knew that I did old computers. I said, yes, please.
Well, she looks absolutely in great nick.
Yeah, he had it from new. The only thing he'd done was, I think, one small upgrade for the memory. And as you can see, it's still got the plastic over the label.
I think I removed my plastic about a month ago.
Oh.
I'll have to check, actually. Maybe it's still there. Maybe I'm misremembering.
But
so this has got, what's this? This is not the net USB. What's this one on the back?
that is actually a net USB, but the light version without the USB.
Some more a net.
Yes.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, exactly the same, except without the USB.
So the net USB, sorry, for people who don't know, that's it's interactive. It was two-way Ethernet exchange over a one-way memory port. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically uses the trick of writing using reads by using the address as the data. So you read from an address, and then the logic in there uses that address to get the 8 bits of data.
To deduce the data, yeah. I've got the slightly older version of this. I can't remember what it's called. It's a Hythe or something. I've got one of those. It's same trick, yeah.
Well, the same trick was actually used by the Spectre GCR, and so to do the GCR encoding, of course, you've got to be able to write data to control the chips for the speed, because
And that was for the floppy drive.
For the floppy drive, yeah. So yeah, that used exactly the same technique of write using reads.
So is this a stock machine? Is this in minty fresh condition, or has this got some secret upgrades inside?
It's basically stock, other than the hard drive has had to be replaced because the original had head stiction problems, where the bumper where the head homes to turns to goo and then sticks the head. Managed to free it a couple of times by opening up and manually freeing it, but then it just died completely.
Was that a 60 megabytes or an 80?
Well, I think that was the 80 megabyte.
Ah, posh one.
Yeah, but I basically got a replacement IDE drive from eBay, old laptop drive, and that's what that's got in there.
Oh, so that's got spinning metal still?
Yes. I did try with one with an CF card, but CF card was actually too small. I only had a 128 meg one, and the next size up wouldn't work because it's too big.
I've got an SD card adapter in my one. That seems to work okay.
But actually, spinning Rust is fine. It fits. It works best.
So if this is quite new, I presume you haven't got anything particularly fancy to demo for us on software-wise?
There's a couple of I've downloaded a couple of demos, and I've got the Ace tracker for demoing the DSP audio, which takes a while to start up.
Oh, this has the great the 1-800 Natalie. I was listening to that the other day. That's fantastic.
Eventually, when it's finished, right? Okay, I can. It just shows off the DSP audio. Other than the sampled, some of the sample sounds, everything else is being generated by the DSP as a synthesizer.
Yes, there's nothing external here. There's no fancy plugins on the back of the Falcon. This is coming straight out of the sample.
Yep, and not only that, but the audio are not samples.
There be. Well, I'll link that one in down below. But Stephen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Cheers.